This channel is sponsored by the Army Painter.
There's been no small amount of speculation, potato quality leaks, and, dare we say it, Horus Heresy, but this summer sees the release of the 3rd edition of the Horus Heresy. I'm part-time Praetor and full-time Video Centurion Campbell McLaughlin, and I'm here today to welcome you to the new edition. While we're going to cover some of the changes for returning players, our aim is to bring potential newcomers up to speed on what is, at its surface, a pretty intimidating game. We'd like to thank Games Workshop for providing us with a preview copy of these rules and the Saturnine box for review purposes. To read more Heresy coverage, head over to Goonhammer.com. Link in the description. If you're coming over from the relatively streamlined landscape of modern 40k and Age of Sigmar, this is going to seem like a lot, and that's precisely because it is. The Horus Heresy is every bit as maximalist as you'd expect from a game with 60-something tie-in novels. If you're looking for a game where your Primarch can enter a 5-step challenge sub-phase against an enemy Praetor lest they suffer the disgraced condition, this is probably the game for you. If you just want to push your blue dudes into their red dudes though, this might be a little much for starters. These aren't the cleanest, best written rules, but they certainly are the most rules. For the most part, they'll seem familiar, possibly so much that you'll experience some game bleed and mix up the rules from another game or edition, but it's still Warhammer at the end of the day. It just might be the most Warhammer that Warhammer's ever been, for better and for worse. We'll start with a Saturnine pattern dreadnought in the room, which is just how this tome is written. Nearly 2/3 of this 362-page core book are rules, and they are exhaustive. We're talking 18 pages just explaining how vehicles work here. These serve to explain everything in detail, breaking things into specific orders of operations that only occasionally contradict each other. The layout is also at times baffling, intermingling unit and weapon special rules or venturing into advanced topics before covering the basics. Unit types and subtypes are explained before moving and shooting, for example, and vehicle, flyer, and terrain rules come in before the basic turn structure. There's also subphases upon subphases upon subphases, with something as ubiquitous as the assault phase consisting of 5 subphases per unit, and that's before getting into challenges, combat resolution, or anything else. It's less like the clean and orderly rules of a modern game like 40k, and more like finding your older brother's dog-eared AD&D rulebook tucked between issues of Heavy Metal and Hustler. It's an information overload and absolutely confounding without full context, but there sure are some pretty pictures in there. And that's not just a joke. The book itself is gorgeous, with some great art, color plates, and those photocomp pictures in there that really make the models come to life. I'll admit, being in the old as hell target demographic, a Photoshop picture of a bunch of models with all these environmental effects and lasers and such tickles the part of my brain that formed and stopped developing in 2005. One of the things that exemplifies the difference that 10,000 years of rules makes is the stat lines of our models. Let's look at the stat block for a standard tactical marine. Most of this will look familiar to anyone who plays 40k, even if it's formatted a little differently. Sorry, I have my own servitor to worry about. Movement to determine how fast they move, weapon skill for close combat ability, ballistic skill for shooting attacks, strength to determine how well they can wound their target, toughness for how hard they are to wound, wounds representing how many hits they can take, initiative for their speed in combat, attacks for how many attacks they get in melee, and leadership to determine their morale. Then, what's this? A cool stat straight out of Necromunda, there to determine how well they can resist tactical statuses. More on that later. Willpower for dealing with psychic abilities, intelligence for making checks to use advanced war gear and rules, and then your typical save and invulnerable save characteristics to resist damage. Instead of toughness and wounds like infantry have, vehicles have armor values, usually differing between their front, side, and rear, and hull points, much like the older editions of 40k. In these cases, you're rolling the strength of your weapon plus a d6 to see if you can penetrate the armor, then dealing damage. Those vehicles are also shooting with weapons based on the facing where they're mounted on the model, so no 40k style Land Raider death blossoms. Weapons are also different, at least in how they're formatted. In the case of a bolter, it's got range, pretty self-explanatory, firepower, determining how many attacks it's got, range strength, which is just strength with the word ranged before it, and armor penetration, which works by punching through that armor save or worse. So for example, this bolter is AP 5, so a unit with a 5-up or a 6-up save wouldn't get a saving throw against it. Lastly is the damage of the weapon, which is how many wounds or hull points it causes. And special rules and traits. Traits don't generally do anything on their own, but they're keywords that interact with other rules. So for instance, the Imperial Fists can sometimes gain a +1 to hit with bolt and auto weapons with their Fire Discipline rule. The big shiny new feature of 3rd edition is tactical statuses. These are more involved morale effects, handing out a bunch of debuffs to a unit on the battlefield. Some weapons or abilities force these on a unit, usually keying off of a failed cool or leadership check. These make all the unit's charges disordered, reduces their initiative to 1, removes their ability to contest objectives, and takes away any bonuses they get for standing still. Without going into specifics, those are all very bad for you. On top of that, there's 4 specific statuses. I'm currently under the incapacitated condition, which prevents me from moving lest this cat bite the shit out of me. Pinned prevents a unit from moving, charging, rushing, pursuing, or disengaging, effectively locking them in place. Suppressed makes a unit only hit with snapshots, generally making it so they only hit on 6s. Stunned prevents a unit from declaring reactions, so no firing Overwatch or return fire with them. Routed effectively breaks the unit, turning their shooting into snapshots, shutting down reactions, forcing the unit to fall back towards their own table edge, and potentially running off the table. With these in mind, you're probably going to want to pay a lot of attention to the psychological stats of your models, as you really don't want these effects on your guys. Vehicles have their own means of shaking these off with repair rolls, but they're still generally bad news. Heresy games can be played as small as you'd like, but they tend to be around the 3,000 point mark. That's going to mean a lot of infantry, or some huge units like super heavies and primarchs to eat up that point limit. These fit into detachments, which are a set of slots you can fill out to build your army. So for example, the Crusade detachment has a high command slot, 3 command slots, 4 troop slots, and 4 transport slots, and each unit fits into those categories. Your squads are also pretty flexible, usually costing so many points to buy the base number of models, and from there you can buy individual models and war gear to fill out your points. It's more granular than modern 40k for sure, though the detachments aren't all too different from Age of Sigmar's regiments or the detachments from Legiones Imperialis. Legions Imperialis, Legiones Imperialis, I don't know, man. It's all fake Latin to me. Our worry is that a lot of people are going to bounce off this game. There's no real equivalent to Combat Patrol or Spearhead to onboard new players, or even a mission on less than a full 4x6 board. The game dumps you into the deep end, and it's shockingly lethal. In our test games, even traditionally tough units like Terminators and Dreadnoughts were getting swept off the board by multi-damage weapons. It's safe to assume your first games will also use the 3 scenarios offered in the main rulebook, each of which are generally pretty simple. These are usually a primary mission of capturing objective markers, then some secondary missions like killing the enemy warlord. Just pay attention because they award different points in different missions, because of course they do. While my Heresy Lifer co-writer was disappointed that the missions were so simple, I feel like a straightforward scenario is going to be necessary to play in a rules-dense environment like this, especially for newcomers. There will undoubtedly be more missions introduced in expansions down the line, so if you're hurting for something more exciting than these 3, you probably won't be waiting too long. Now, if you were worried about this new edition just looking like modern 40k with a different coat of paint, then by now you should be able to tell that it's a completely different game. There are still all the war gear options, esoteric rules interactions, and opportunities for narrative to flourish here. There's a note at the start of the rules section that veteran players should read through the rules though. While the spirit of the game is still intact, pretty much every single rule has changed in one way or another. It's still a complex, overwrought game, same as it ever was. We'll go over the high points here, but we'll have a more in-depth review on Goonhammer.com. Stats are more granular. Weapons got some more rules layered on, namely gaining a damage characteristic. It's hard to understate how big a change this is from the previous edition, where most weapons only did a single point of damage. Instant death is gone too, but your giant super weapons will usually do enough damage to more than make up for it. Now something like a Meltagun will just do a flat 3 points of damage, regardless of what it shoots. As you'd likely assume, this also works against hull points, giving a more gradual damage breakdown on your vehicles instead of going straight to the damage table and instantly exploding. Now a glancing hit causes a tactical status effect, while a penetrating hit just causes that weapon's damage. We also mentioned the traits and special rules added to weapons earlier, giving them way more opportunity to key off of existing rules and have additional effects. On the non-weapon side, we already covered how models now get more mental statistics with cool, willpower, and intelligence, which interact with a lot of the new rules as well, with a high cool stat being an especially useful one to focus on for holding objectives. Actual streamlining. Despite the maximalist state of the game, a few things did get simplified. Artificer armor for sergeants got removed, speeding up some general gameplay, and scatter dice now only scatter after missing a standard hit roll, drastically speeding up things like quad mortars or squads of plasma cannons. A load of rerolls also got the axe, so you're not going to be rolling quite as many dice from rules like Shred or Hatred. And some specifics around measuring also got cut out. Vehicles don't have to worry about staying at combat speed to shoot at full effect, and you won't be measuring for rapid fire anymore. A lot of those guns just got a higher firepower rating to compensate. Army construction got an overhaul. We touched on this before, but the force organization chart of old has been binned in favor of a detachment system similar to Legions Imperialis. It's a little harder to grasp, but ultimately more flexible, and you won't feel locked into your Legion's rights of war. Those are gone now in favor of the new detachment system. You start with a primary detachment, then can take auxiliary, apex, and allied detachments as points allows. There's no compulsory choices here, so you can kind of take whatever you'd like, so long as each detachment has at least one unit in it and they fit into one of the available slots. Some of these detachments also have prime slots, which offer some extra benefit to gently nudge you towards taking a more balanced army composition, without outright restricting you with compulsory choices. While we might miss some of the specific flavor of the old rights of war, this lets you collect what you want and they're way less restrictive. Assault got complicated. The assault phase is probably the biggest change in the new rules, and there's a load to unpack. You still declare that your unit is charging another unit within 12 inches like you used to, but then you make a setup move based on some arcane formula combining initiative and movement, and then both the charging unit and the target unit make volley attacks with all of their assault and pistol weapons, only hitting on snapshots of course. Then the charging unit rolls 2 dice, taking the high die, and then they can complete the charge. If they can't make the distance, they have to make a cool check, and if they fail that, they gain the stun status. And then it's on to the challenge sub-phase, which takes up 18 pages of the rulebook, and I dare not sum it up here. It's a very involved minigame that certainly sounds cool on paper, but boy howdy does it take up a lot of paper. Honestly, it kind of feels like they crammed full tilt into the middle of this army scale game, introducing a 10-way rock paper scissors in the most heresy way possible. Only units of the command or champion subtypes get to take part now, so at least your tactical sergeant won't get mercilessly dunked on by a Primarch anymore. All these changes to the assault phase make long bomb charges a lot less likely, but the short charge is a lot more liable to happen. And the challenge minigame is... It's something alright. It's really cool. I would gladly play it if it was its own standalone game. In here, I think it's a bit much. Post-combat feels better. Any unit may attempt to disengage from combat. You aren't necessarily stuck in combat for the whole game anymore. If the loser of a combat breaks and has to fall back, the winner can attempt to re-engage. Sweeping advance is gone now, which I don't mind because it was kind of a feels-bad interaction when it happened. Fewer reactions per turn. You'll typically have 3 reaction points per turn in a standard-sized game, letting you pick and choose from a total of 8 reactions. A unit can also only use 1 reaction per turn, so you have to be mindful of that. No more return fire and then overwatch from the same Devastator squad, for instance. Reserves have changed. If this was the crux of your old strategy, you might not be wild about these changes. With games only being 4 turns long, you can now enter from reserves on turn 1, which gets your guys on the board faster. However, only 1 unit can come in via Deep Strike per turn, though they don't scatter now. You also can't assault out of Deep Strike anymore, and those 2 changes functionally kill drop pod assault armies. Pour one out for the Steel Rain enjoyers in the audience. There are some ways to build around a Deep Strike heavy strategy, but for the most part, it's just going to be a good way to drop a key unit onto an objective or into a good firing position. Unit-specific scoring. A load of units have special rules that affect how they score victory points. Some of the most important are Line, Support Squad, and Vanguard, because they influence how many victory points you score, and therefore, who wins the game. For instance, elite melee troops like Terminators often have the Vanguard rule, scoring however many points it states when they destroy an enemy unit holding an objective. So you might score 1 victory point for taking the objective, but Cataphractii Terminators have Vanguard 3, scoring them an additional 3 victory points. Lost Legions. While it's nothing compared to the culls of units for Legends in 40k, there was still some stuff removed, mostly in the form of war gear options for consoles. We're also missing destroyers, scouts, and a few other units, but it wouldn't be a shock if these got reintroduced with some campaign expansion down the line. Now, a few factions like Shattered Legions, Militia, and so on are missing at time of writing, but there's a roadmap from Warhammer community showing some stuff coming up, so if you've got Custodes or a horde of demonic weirdos, you probably won't be waiting too long. So that's our first take on the 3rd edition of Horus Heresy. It's fluffy, it's detailed, it's great and terrible in equal measure. My co-writer was generally very happy with the new rule set, but I found it all to be pretty overwhelming, and I'm a Battletech guy. There's a lot to like here for returning players, but it might prove overwhelming for newcomers until there's some kind of easier onboarding process. Our Heresy team will be working on just that, so keep your browser tuned to Goonhammer.com for more Heresy coverage. If you like what we do, why not hit that subscribe button, or support us on Patreon for bonus content like podcasts, Discord access, and more. Also, if you're in the UK, come join us at the Goonhammer Open in Leicester on the 6th and 7th of September for a casual event weekend where we can take these new rules for a spin, and you can personally destroy the Goonhammer team. I won't be there though. I don't speak British. We'll put a link to that event in the description down below. I've been Consul McMoratat, and you'll have to pardon my casual attire. My giant Saturnine shoulder pads were in the wash. Thanks for watching.